now that we made a mess out of all of that, I guess we're going to talk about some hand loading today, so stick around. Alright, assuming you have your brass that you need for reloading, whether it's new brass or once fired brass from buying new rounds, or if you're converting 223 brass into the blackout rounds. I've actually got a video on that. If you haven't seen it, there's probably a link right about here. But the next thing you need to do is try to decide what bullets you're going to put in this stuff. Luckily for us, there is a plethora of 30 caliber bullets out there on the market. Wait, did I say lucky? It's kind of like a kid in a candy store. Which ones do you choose? A big school of thought on the Subsonics is weight. A lot of people believe that the heavier weight is going to carry through better than less weight traveling at the same speed, which there's a lot to be said about that. But one of the things you got to keep in consideration is that heavier weight makes the bullet longer. If you were to take a 220 grain bullet, say for example, and set it next to that 180 grain bullet, it's a lot longer, which forces you to shove it down in the case further. One of the things you should be considering is the fact that you've got to put that stuff in a magazine. You've only got so much room in a magazine, so you've got to keep your cartridges at a certain length. If you're running a big heavy 220 grain bullet down in there, you've got to shove it down into the case further to make room for the magazine, where one of the smaller, shorter bullets, you don't have to shove it down in there as far. Well, that's not an issue if you're not concerned about how far you've got that down in there. But once you run these bullets past the neck, for example, you start getting it down further into the case, it doesn't have a good tendency to want to come out as even as it really should. A good example there again is with this 220 grain. Say magazine length on that thing is there. See, you're getting more bullet down in that case. You're actually getting down there into the powder, depending on which powder you're using. So you want to kind of consider that as a factor too. Another consideration is the cost of some of these bullets. You can get kind of expensive with some of your match bullets and stuff, or some of the expandables, the real thin stuff that's made to deform at slower speeds. Those things can get kind of pricey, so you kind of want to decide where you want to get in there. I'm more for the one of going with the cheaper bullets. I think I was paying about 24 cents a piece for these the Sierras that I was shooting at, 180 grain Sierras, and they've been performing well. Those are a soft tip interlocks, so I don't have that big pointy tip on there, so I can get a little closer out on those things, not have to worry about them feeding in the magazine. Once you get out and start actually hunting with these things, you'll find out more that that little pointy polymer tipped, special tipped bullet, it's not really going to do a whole lot for you at subsonic speeds, because these things aren't traveling at anywhere near the speeds they were designed to be traveling. It's not a 308 or a 30-06 or even a 300 Win Mag. It's a 300 Blackout, and they're running out there pretty slow. You're usually trying to get around 1050 to 1100 feet per second. So those bullets aren't going to do much. If you're wondering or worried about something that dull, like those round nose, if you're curious how much they'll actually penetrate, or worried that they won't penetrate. Let me just show you something. We did a little test with some plywood, and these were at 100 yards away from us, and we shot them with a Subsonic 220 grain bullet, and it went, there's where you can see where we hit, and it went through that one, 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 and it went all the way through that one. And it barely deformed, but as you can see, it's a good 6 inches of plywood, and that round nose went right through them. Pretty much everything else we tried on these also went right through them. So it doesn't matter if you're using one of them little pointy things or a nice blunt nose, these guys are going to penetrate. Now you can get into some of your expandables. Nosler makes a 220 grain bullet. This is actually a pretty thin copper on there, so that thing fragments pretty easily at them slower speeds. But you got to be careful with how you load this thing, because you can actually destroy the bullet just trying to get it to load in your chamber. Lehigh Defenses is another good one. I actually kind of like their bullets, but you're getting up there kind of pricey. These are the maximum expansion Subsonics. It's a 194 grain bullet, and they actually have perforations pre-cut in them. So when they hit, they'll mushroom out, or they'll expand out like a broadhead on an arrow, and they'll get, I believe, a pretty nasty wound channel. The other ones we like to use is what they call a controlled fracturing. This is a 176 grain bullet, and it also has the pre-cut perforations in there. This thing is actually designed to come apart. The petals on here will actually come off there. There's a little tip in there for penetration, and then the main body of the bullet actually will help carry through itself there too. I'm not sure if you can see that, if I can get a really good look at that, but that's a pretty nasty looking little hollow point. Another thing you might want to consider is what you're actually trying to use your hand loads for. In this case here, we were reloading for hunting, so we needed the accuracy. So you might need to try to change some of those bullets loads around a little bit to try to get your gun shooting a little more accurate, or you can actually change the gun to get the round to shoot more accurate out of the gun. In this case here, we ended up putting a longer barrel on it. That's an 18-inch barrel on there, and changed the twist at the same time. So that's a 1-in-7 twist. So that helped to stabilize everything, and that actually worked out pretty good for us. It's a little more expensive way to go, other than trying to change your loads, but I had a good load on there. I was comfortable with the way it fit in the magazines and the performance of the load, so I just wanted to change what I needed to get the thing to shoot better. And the longer barrel, the different twists seemed to help a lot with that. But that's used mostly for hunting. Like I said, we shoot a lot of those wild pigs, and you can do headshots at 100 yards with this thing without worrying too much about it. If you are shooting a gas gun with these blackouts, and you are doing your reloads and trying to save your brass, one of the little goodies you might want to think about investing in is a brass catcher. This is a Codwell brass catcher, and it actually velcros on the gun and catches the brass. Because I know these ARs like to throw this brass around pretty good, and there's nothing more aggravating than trying to find brass in grass. So you might want to think about getting a brass catcher so you've got everybody contained pretty good. If you're trying to chrono these things, you're trying to get them at a certain speed. We use the Magneto Speed Sporter, and actually did a modify on that to get it to work on the suppressors, but the factory sporter that comes through there will work fine on your regular rifle barrels. But that was a good tool to use to get our proper speeds. We've used the regular chronographs and even used the lab radar, and we've had issues with both. Suppressors don't work too good on the lab radar. You've got to buy extra equipment for them to try to pick up, and even so, they only work just so much. So if you're trying to get precise about it, the magneto speed is probably the better way to go. And if your intentions are something different for your blackout, and you might want to go with something like this, then your hand loads are going to be a little bit different. Obviously, with this thing, you're not trying for those 100-yard precision shots. You might be using this for perhaps even home defense type stuff. If you are, I would definitely suggest using some of Lehigh Defense products, because as you know, and as I've shown you, that blackout round will go through just about anything. So if you have to be worried about what's beyond what you're actually shooting at with something around your home area, so those expandables would be what I would suggest to do right there, so you don't have to worry about carrying all the way through the house. If you're just looking for something to plink around and bust up and have a good time with, then you definitely want to probably think about going with some of the less expensive bullets for your loading on this. As long as you have your gun functioning, the speeds aren't real critical on there. You're basically just trying to have some fun with it. Of course, if you're wanting everything quiet, you still have to keep them under supersonic. But these things will go either way, subs or supers, and you have just the same amount of fun with it. The suppressor helps keep a lot of the noise down, so you can actually shoot this thing without blowing everybody's eardrums out. But that's another option to consider when you're getting into doing some of your reloads. Well, hopefully that gave you some ideas. That was some good input for you to help you decide which way you want to go with your hand loading. We've actually done quite a bit of it, and probably still will do quite a bit of it because they're fun guns to shoot. Your powders, we pretty much had gone over in the previous episode which powders we're using and why we like it. Haven't had any issues with that. Yeah, there's some other ones we could try, but I've got good results with that stuff. We pretty much know what bullets we're using, and all these extra 30 caliber bullets that we're not using won't go to waste because we have plenty of 30 calibers. The dies, we're usually using the RCBS type dies. We've got 2 sets of dies. Once you get a set up for a particular load, since there are 2 of us shooting different rifles, we've got our own die set, so we can just simply screw it in and go. We do enough blackouts. We have a dedicated trim tool that's set to the proper trim length. We don't have to keep readjusting that thing when we want to do our blackouts again. We just simply bought another trim tool for all the other ones. But that's pretty much where we're sitting with our loads. Your actual load data, how much powder and stuff you're going to use. There's a lot of information out there, and I would suggest using caution. You know, when you're trying to build up these loads. What works well in our guns may not work in your gun. Different bullet manufacturers, different batches of powder. You know, take your pick. So use some caution when you're loading this stuff up. Always wear your protection when you're shooting these things. hopefully that's been some help once you're trying to decide which way you're going to go with your reloads, or if you are doing reloading, perhaps this might have helped give you a little bit more information. Well, I guess I've got this video long enough already. I've got another video I want to put out on this thing, so make sure you guys got the little notify bell activated, so when I do drop that thing you'll know when it's out. If you're not subscribed, please do subscribe and give us one of these little thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments about anything that we've discussed on this video, just drop a note down there in the comments, and I'll answer the best way I can. We'll catch y'all next time.